Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov presented Russia's views on NATO and the U.S. during his keynote speech at the Munich Security Conference. Lavrov said Russia wants to build pragmatic relations with the United States based on mutual respect and denied allegations that Russia tries to influence other nations' elections. The Russian top diplomat also described NATO as a Cold War institution whose expansion has raised tensions in Europe over the past 30 years. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg has called on all NATO members to honor their defense spending commitments and asserted that Europe cannot rely on the U.S. to defend its borders.
The ability of our alliance to fulfill all its tasks depends on all allies contributing their fair share. Europeans cannot ask the United States to commit to Europe's defense if they are not willing to commit more themselves.
My meeting with Minister Lavrov is part of our political dialogue with Russia, and we have met several times, including here at the Munich Security Conference last year. We addressed a wide range of different issues. We, of course, discussed Ukraine. And there are well-known disagreements between NATO and Russia. I underlined the importance of full implementation of the Minsk agreements, that the NATO supports the sovereignty and the territorial integrity of Ukraine.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said Russia wants to build pragmatic relations with the U.S. based on mutual respect and denied allegations that Russia tries to influence other nations' elections. Lavrov also described NATO as a Cold War institution whose expansion has raised tensions in Europe over the past 30 years.
The Russian foreign minister says that NATO's expansion has led to unprecedented tensions in Europe.
Spreading of NATO has led to unprecedented over the 30 years level of tensions. And this year we mark 20 years of signing of NATO-Russia Founding Act in Paris, and 15 years since the adoption of the Rome Declaration about a new quality of NATO-Russian relations. The basis for these documents was the obligation of Russia and the West to jointly ensure security based on mutual respect of each other's interests, strengthening confidence and preventing thrift in the Euro-Atlantic region, not to create demarcation lines. This did not happen, mainly due to the fact that NATO still remained a Cold War institution. Many say that
Sergei Lavrov went on to say that Russia has never tried to hide its views, adding that the post-Cold War order has come to an end. He added that Moscow disagrees with those who accuse Russia of undermining the world's liberal order. Speaking on the second day of the 53rd Munich Security Conference, Lavrov also said that his country wanted pragmatic relations with the U.S. He also spoke about relations with Ukraine, saying Russia is not seeking conflict with any neighbor. He urged Kiev to abide by the Minsk agreement while calling for direct dialogue and compromise to resolve the Ukraine crisis.
U.S. Vice President Mike Pence has reassured European allies that the United States will continue to back NATO, even as Washington looks for new ways to cooperate with Russia.
Today, on behalf of President Trump, I bring you this assurance. The United States of America strongly supports NATO and will be unwavering in our commitment to this transatlantic alliance. The fates of the United States and Europe are intertwined.
Pence's speech was greeted by muted applause from European allies unnerved by President Donald Trump's anti-EU rhetoric. But Pence said Trump's administration is committed to upholding the post-World War II order. He also warned allies they must pay their fair share to support NATO, noting many lack a clear or credible plan to do so. The U.S. Vice President also said Russia must honor the Minsk peace accords and de-escalate the violence in eastern Ukraine.
Das funktioniert jetzt nicht. Der muss erst mal.
We have to work out what our system.
Die Vereinigten Staaten von Amerika. Um das noch einmal zu verdeutlichen, habe ich mir zur Vorbereitung auf die
This was the first chance for the new US Vice President to address many of the world's leading politicians. So far, they've discussed the future of the West and whether NATO still has a role to play. These were issues Mike Pence dealt with directly.
You know, the fates of the United States and Europe are intertwined. Your struggles are our struggles. Your success is our success. And ultimately, we walk into the future together. This is President Trump's promise. We will stand with Europe today and every day because we are bound together by the same noble ideals: freedom, democracy, justice, and the rule of law.
But with those warm words came another message. NATO countries must pay their fair share. That is a familiar refrain for the German hosts of this conference. Military partnership with the US remains the bedrock of their security. Several thousand German soldiers are deployed in Lithuania, helping to secure one of NATO's easternmost borders. German Chancellor Angela Merkel has already said she'll increase defence spending as part of a wider EU decision to do the same. For her, the watchword was multilateralism.
feststehende internationale Ordnung und auch
What we have today is a world where there is no fixed international global order. And in spite of the Cold War, the relationship with Russia is as yet, I say this from a European perspective, is not as it should be. Now, these challenges of the world today cannot be mastered by one state alone. It needs a cooperative effort, and this means we have to forge ahead with multilateral structures.
For his part, the Russian foreign minister had some harsh words for NATO countries. Sergei Lavrov called the Atlantic Alliance a Cold War institution. He said a new world order is needed. Regarding Ukraine, he felt only full implementation of the Minsk agreement, which aims to secure a ceasefire, could solve the crisis. He said only by talking problems through could the world solve them.
Right now, we need dialogue more than ever on all difficult issues. We need to find compromises. Games are useless. Russia is not looking for conflicts with anyone, but will always be able to protect its interests.